everybody. You may be wondering why I have a cowboy hat on with a flag on it. Well, we're doing this July 3rd, so of course we're getting ready for Independence Day week. And you're going to be out playing with your ham radio stuff, and you may be climbing your tower because you're going to have the days off. But don't go up there until you see what Tim Duffy, K3LR, has to say about tower safety. And also, we're going to talk about a little bit of field day stuff, and we're going to talk about the 4th of July and snakes in a transmitter. Ooh. That's all coming up next here on Ham Nation.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by Icom. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation. This is Ham Nation, episode number 409 for July 3rd, 2019. More tower safety.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special July 3rd episode of Ham Nation. Bob's not with us tonight. He's out traveling, having fun with family, but we've got a full crew tonight. First up, out on the West Coast, we've got Gordon West. Hi, Gordo.
Well, good afternoon, George. Just returned from Lake Arrowhead, where the Mountaintop Amateur Radio Association is getting all set for handling firework duty tomorrow, and they'll be on the radio, keeping everything safe and coordinated. Back to you, George.
Okay, that sounds like fun, Gordo. Of course, we've got Don with us down to the south. Don, you're looking mighty stylish tonight in that hat.
Thank you. I'm back from my son's automotive woes. I spent the whole week working on his car, a cascading series of failures, as you know, a 2004 Grand Am will give you. But yeah, I got my VOA shirt on and my cowboy hat because, you know, it's America and the 4th of July and we're ready to go. And speaking of America, the whole world is listening to WTWW. They're in Lebanon, Tennessee on 5085 and 15.810. You want to send them some ham radio related stuff, let them know you're hearing them, email at WTWW.us. They love signal reports and some great programming on that radio station. If you haven't checked out WTWW shortwave, you certainly need to do that. Got Dr. Tamitha Skov with the solar report, as well as the news from Amateur Radio Newsline, and a lot more, George.
Okay, Don. Yeah, I've got a few still shots later in the show myself. Just a couple of little transmitter site related tales. Not very long, just very brief ones there. But we've also got the guy that knows all about tower safety here, and if he doesn't, he knows who does. Hi, Tim.
Hello, George. It's great to be on July 3rd. Everybody getting ready for the big celebration tomorrow. And, of course, George, like a lot of hams around the world, I've been working on my 13 colonies. And if you're not involved in the 13 colony celebration on the air, go to 13 colonies, that's 13colonies.net, and you can learn more about it. It is filling the HF bands on CW, on phone, on FT8, lots of activities. So hope you and others are getting involved and getting on the radio. It's good till Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time.
Cool. Yeah, that's a big event every year, Tim. Glad to hear that you're in there working that. Well, let's get on in with Gordo right now because he's got some special shots for us tonight, I'm sure.
We have, and I'm very happy to report the weather has been cooperating. So, Kevin, let's go ahead and jump right into those short shots. See, I told you the weather was cooperating. This is the Hepburn report, and if you've not scored it yet, it's www.dxinfocenter, and that ends centered is tre.com. There it is up there. And what it's showing us, is a good shot to Hawaii with some hurricanes. That's the unsubtle stuff to the bottom. And this means the weather is going to give us some real excitement probably in about 4 days. Not the weather itself, but actually what the weather does to tropospheric ducting and VHF and UHF communications. And that's what we're going to study. Normally, as we go higher in altitude, for every 300 feet, we lose 1 degree Fahrenheit of temperature. So if we're a mile up, then we lose 20 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can see, that water vapor, moisture, at 1,000 feet of elevation above the Earth, we lose about 0.5 gram per kilogram. And what's not shown on this chart, but we'll tell you, is pressure. As we go higher up in altitude, pressure decreases with height logarithmically. And normal air pressure out here along the West Coast is about 10, 12 millibars. And for every 10 meters of altitude, we lose 1 millibar. And for every kilometer of altitude from the ground up, we lose 100 millibars of air pressure. So this is what we call normal weather. And when we look at some of the satellite photos throughout the country, or for us on the West Coast, we see something interesting, and that is a undisturbed area of clouds just hanging off the water that you see gray. And Hawaii is off to the left, and that's a high-pressure system that is going to be spinning clockwise, and that high-pressure system is going to sit right between the West Coast and Hawaii. And in other parts of the country, you too will be having high pressure coming in. Here we see what high pressure can do. It gets things mighty warm, and we're seeing a mirage. And that's actually a reflection of the sky above us as well as that truck ahead of us. Looks almost like water, but, well, the sky, when it's superheated and reflects off the hot asphalt, also looks a little bit like water. Well, if it can bend light waves, you can imagine what it might do to VHF and UHF radio waves. So what is occurring during a tropospheric duct, and these occur all over the country, is a high-pressure warm air mass will settle in, and as that warm air mass with high pressure begins to descend, because remember, the high pressure is heavier than the air below it, as it descends, it bumps into a thin layer of cold air right above the Earth's surface or right above the water, and it gets squished by descending high pressure, and anytime you squish air, it gets warm. So that's what happens when you fill up a canister of oxygen or air in your scuba tanks. That would be good old regular air in the scuba tanks. You're going to find that those tanks get warm. Well, during periods of tropospheric ducting, or as the weathermen say, we're going to have an inversion layer, we see that there's a sharp contrast to what normally gets colder and less humidity, and things actually go back up and then they come back down, and we actually have two ducts that are forming up. And in between those two ducts, in between the dotted lines, that is, the lower dotted lines and then the upper ones, in between the dotted lines where the pressure is going back up, this is where VHF and UHF radio waves many times will get channeled and will carry for literally thousands of miles. Now, this happens all over the country. As you can see, Texas many times on 2 meters, 222, 440, 1270, can talk from Texas to Florida. Florida, during a high-pressure system off the Atlantic, will many times be able to talk all the way up to Nova Scotia. And the Northeast may be able to talk down to the Panhandle. So, George, they may be talking to you long range. Yes, Amanda, Denver to the east is going to have some exciting conditions when that high-pressure cell sets up. And out here on the West Coast, we can talk up and down the West Coast. But more important, we can break world's records by talking on VHF and UHF, not sporadic E, Nope, we're talking about tropospheric ducting to different parts of the country over great distances. During the wintertime, we also have some tropospheric ducting when a warm air mass collides with ambient cold air, and stations A and B, right in the midst of those overlying layers of air, they're actually getting stacked up inside each other with a temperature difference of 10 degrees, will many times carry VHF and UHF radio waves literally hundreds, if not thousands of miles. That's right. We can actually show that with a laser in multiple liquids. These layers, and we've got the laser going in that middle layer, see it bend? Well, that's what happens. Unlike reflection, this is refraction, where that radio wave will travel and travel and travel as far as that tropospheric duct remains intact. On APRS, many times you'll see when you're outside of any digipeater that's able to tie you into the internet, you're able to see other stations, not just 20 or 30 miles away squawking on APRS, but sometimes you'll see them 100 miles away on a hot, windless day when you're seeing a lot of mirages out there on the desert floor. So even VHF, UHF, very much affected by tropospheric ducting. And you can see what your VHF, UHF radio waves are going through. Here we see a couple of pelicans. Yesterday, I think Dee called them tropospheric ducks. No, those are not ducks, Dee. Those are pelicans. But there's Catalina Island, 26 miles across the sea. And you'll see that there's a small isthmus there. But when the tropospheric duct came in that next morning, a year ago, last July, whoa, look what happened. Now it's got a bridge, and it is just an optical illusion because of that air mass that is settled in right over the island. And you see that thin band of gray air. This is bizarre. That's a supertanker exiting Southern California. And on the supertanker, we are seeing a reflection off of the warm air mass that's maybe only 300 or 400 feet thick. You can just make out the demarcation of the high and the high spot of that warm air mass. And we're seeing a perfect reflection of this supertanker due to a phantom mirage. Now, you don't need a huge set of beam antennas. This is what I use, but you don't need something that large to be able to take the capabilities of tropospheric ducting. Even a small antenna will do well, but you must have the antenna oriented so that it's going to take advantage of the polarization of what you're trying to pick up. If you're really into weak signal work and you got one of the new Icom 9700s like Gary has, and you want to try some single sideband and CW tropo ducting, you'll tune into the beacon band down at 144.276 out here on the West Coast. But tune around 10 kilohertz higher and lower. That's where the beacons are. They are all horizontally polarized. On 432, we tune them in at 432.310. And again, horizontally polarized. But for those that are on VHF and UHF FM, no problem. Your vertical antenna will be able to pick up distant repeater stations, distant stations on simplex, as well as distant weather stations that you can pick up for literally hundreds of miles away during the period of tropospheric ducting with just a simple whip. And yes, they do make horizontal antennas for 2 meters and 440. This is one we have on the communications van, and we picked up the Hawaiian beacon very well with that small little antenna. So it doesn't take a huge antenna for tropospheric ducting. Well, this is where the records are being set. And this is the gang out in Hawaii. And in Hawaii, they are beaming their antennas to those of us on the West Coast. And during periods of tropospheric ducting, we'll have operators come up to the top of the Mauna Loa volcano. And we just got word today, July 3, 2019, that the volcano is becoming a little bit active seismically. So hopefully they won't have another volcano eruption when there's folks up there this coming week on tropospheric ducting. But anyway, it takes a lot at 8,500 feet to keep the system going. And there is the key ingredient, and that is ham radio volunteers, keeping the tropospheric duct going. And that is staffing the equipment, make sure it's going. The tropospheric duct here on the West Coast, as well as for those of you down in Texas and Florida, is triggered always by a hurricane to the south. Sometimes you'll get it without the hurricane, but the hurricane adds one additional warm layer. And once you start layering the atmosphere, it will develop areas where the temperature might be 10 degrees warmer than what's above it and below it. And at 10 degrees or warmer, that's when things begin to happen. Now, the different bands affected, you would think that you go higher in frequency, the different bands would get weaker and weaker. Take a listen to this.
The reception of two beacons, the higher one on 144.170 and the lower one on 432.075. And if you listen real carefully, the beacon on 1296.250.
Wow! 2,500 miles running a whopping 10 or 15 watts. And this is the Hawaiian side of things. What occurs is the signal will scoot along just on top of those clouds with a high pressure system above it squishing the air, and right above those clouds that are relatively cooler than the air above it, that is the tropospheric duct that everybody's looking for to be able to work it. Then hams will head up on the hill in Hawaii or in other parts of the country when ducting really becomes prominent, and they'll sit on the single sideband calling channels on VHF and UHF and literally make our day. And several years ago, conditions were so good on 430 megahertz, we actually received a picture via amateur television, 6 megahertz wide, 2,500 miles away, 50 watts of power. So absolutely amazing, all that's going on tropospheric ducting. So we encourage all of you that have VHF and UHF in your mobile or a base station, tune around. Don't just pick up your local stations, but see what you can hear well beyond. And that will get you tuning into other repeaters. Try the weather station if your mobile should have good weather reception up to maybe 40, 50 miles from your local station. But during tropospheric ducting this summer, in fact, all this week and next week is when conditions really will peak. On VHF and UHF, you may be picking up the 162 megahertz weather channels up to 400 and 500 miles away. And unlike sporadic E that comes up quickly and then subsides quickly, tropospheric ducting will remain steady for at least 2 or 3 hours, sometimes 2 or 3 days. And out here on the West Coast, one time we heard Hawaii coming in from the 2,500-mile path at 8,500 feet up in Hawaii. Their signal was coming in for about 3 or 4 days. So tropospheric ducting, something fun to take advantage of this 4th of July week and weekend on ham radio. Well, now let's talk about tower safety. And you saw some of the towers that we had the Hawaiians that were maintaining in great shape for sending beacon signals out here. Here's Tim Duffy, and he's got a great presentation for you on tower safety on our 4th of July. Tim?
Thanks, Gordo, and hello again to everybody. Wanted to just take a couple of minutes to go through some safety slides talking about climbing belts. And so here is Tim, W3YQ. He's my best friend. We've known each other for 47 years. We met on ADCW when we were novices as kids. And Tim is a professional tower safety and rescue person. He's been trained by ComTrain. He's got the certificates. He's insured. So he's doing all he can do to try and do his tower safety work safely. And so one of the things, it's very important we start out with hard hats for not only the climbers, but all the ground crew. It's very important that everybody have a hard hat on. If you've ever been close to a tower and something falls, it can do real damage. So Tim is getting ready to go up the tower, and he's got his hard hat on. Let's go to the next slide, Kevin. So here is Tim's climbing belt and safety arrest harness. So there's two critical pieces to his climbing situation. This weighs almost 30 pounds, but he's got his climbing belt and fall arrest harness, and he's going to put it on. Go ahead, Kevin. And one of the things is he's got special hooks, and these are designed for working on towers. And these are the proper attach hooks. Notice that you have to actually release the lock to open up these hooks. That's very important because when you're working on a tower, you can inadvertently get into that latch. And so with the lock on there, it's never going to give way unless you say so. Next slide, Kevin. And so this is the back of the safety fall arrest harness. And this is different than the climbing belt. And this is a very critical piece. This is what has changed in the last 25 years since tower safety has become a real focus of OSHA. They have completely redesigned what you have to wear to be properly safe on a tower. Go to the next slide. So this is what comes off of that fall arrest harness. Notice that these are bunched up cords, and there's two of them, and you must have two so that you can properly climb the tower and always have one of these fall arrest attachments hooked onto the tower. What this does with that the scrunched up bungee looking area is if you were to fall, this will slow the fall so that you won't get slammed right away. And so this is much different than the safety belt. Next slide. So here's the front of that safety fall arrest harness. And notice that Tim has the Elk River carrier there for his cell phone. You don't want to be scrambling around. And if there was ever a problem on the tower that he needed to call for help, that it's critical to have the cell phone close. But notice how there's a breast clamp that goes across the front and that holds all this together. It's extremely important that the fall arrest harness is properly fitted so that you can't fall out of it in the event that you have to use this. Next slide. And so here, when Tim is climbing, getting ready to go, he actually has some rings on his safety belt that allow the fall arrest harness attachments to be so that he can get right at them. So all he has to do is take his arms around to the rear, and he can grab a hold of the lock and get these fall arrest clamps right out. Next slide. And so here is his lanyard, and this is on his safety belt. The safety belt is different from the safety harness. And Tim actually will climb the tower having this lanyard in place all the way, so that not only does he have the safety fall arrests, but he's got the lanyard on there. So there's 2 points of attachments. Notice that fall arrest harness is around his legs. So again, that he cannot fall out of this safety harness in the event of a failure of the lanyard. Go ahead, Kevin. And another back shot showing some of the bags that he has for carrying tools, but also you can see the fall arrest harness attachments. He also has right down there a seat that he can actually sit on when he's in position. Next slide. That seat is really important for making sure that he gets good blood flow to his legs. And so on the top of the safety belt is also a positioning attachment that he can actually put onto the tower with these 2 rings, and that will take a lot of weight off too and allow free motion of his hands to do the tower work. Next slide. And so here you can see Tim climbing, and he's got the lanyard around there. The lanyard is just loose enough that he can lean in and actually go up the tower. Next slide. And when he's in position, he's got the positioning lanyard on, and you can see where his left hand is, that's the fall arrest. In the event that the lanyard gives way, he's got the fall arrest that will keep him from falling down the tower. It's not going to be a very elegant fall, but it's going to save his life in case that happens. Next slide. So I want to tell you about Lee. Lee became a silent key on June 14th of 2019. Lee's call was N3LPJ, and this is the tower. This 20 feet of Roan 55, this is what caused Lee to become a silent key. So on this tower, you'll notice a very unconventional tower base at the bottom. The base was an I-beam that was buried 2 feet with 2 bags of cement, and it's not a Roan base. It's not a Roan design base. It's a very inexpensive base, and it had a flat plate welded to the I-beam, and then it was attached to the Roan 55 base with bolts. And so this is not an approved way to install a tower. Notice he had the gin pole on there, and the gin pole was in place to actually put up this section of tower that went beyond 10 feet. So Lee was on the top of this when the tower came over and killed him. So you don't have to fall very far, and especially when a tower comes over on you, it can be catastrophic. Go to the next slide, Kevin. So when the accident happened, there was an inspection done to see exactly what Lee had done, and what he had done is actually had a cutting torch cut some large holes, and they were too large for his bolts. So he put some epoxy in there and then drilled into the epoxy for his bolts. And the epoxy was to create a smaller attachment hole. And what happened was the epoxy gave way, and there was no way that this tower base was going to stay up. Next slide. And so here, this is just after the accident happened. The police are on site, and this is a Roan 55 pure pin base plate. And Roan has very specific instructions on how this is to be installed. Notice down at the bottom, there is a pure pin hole that was never used. Lee had cut these holes in there. He had put small bolts in there that pulled through the epoxy, and the tower fell over, and unfortunately the tower fell on him, and he became a silent key. Next slide. Here's Lee just before Hamvention this year. He stopped at N8DXE, the DX Engineering store, and was operating the new Yaesu FT101, and snapped this picture. He was on his way to Hamvention. I met up with Lee at Hamvention. He was really looking forward to this tower project. Next slide. Lee wanted to get this done because in 2017, he had operated here at K3LR for K2M. K2M is the special call sign that is assigned for the 13 colonies to Pennsylvania. And he was up here with several operators from the Skyview Amateur Radio Club. And Lee was just excited to be on the air. He was an exciting guy to be around, and he wanted to have this Roan 55 tower in place so that he could represent K2M during the 13 Colonies event this year. So when K2M comes to K3LR on Saturday this week, and we'll be operating for about 12 hours on Saturday as K2M, we're dedicating the whole operation to Lee N3LPJ, and we're very sad for Lee's family and friends. He was a great guy, and I'm a better amateur radio operator because I met Lee. But please be safe and read the Roan books on how to do the proper installation. And if you have a question, you can always email me at k3lr@k3lr.com. So you can also email us at dxengineering.com, and we'll be happy to help you with any of your tower questions, antenna questions, radio questions. But don't do something that is unsafe. Be safe, and make sure that you're doing things the right way. So that's what we have from here. George, it's time for you to take it over.
Okay, Tim, thanks for being with us again tonight and bringing us some important information there on tower safety. Those harnesses have come a long way since the early days. I remember when you just had the one belt and the one lanyard that went around the tower. And I've noticed all the crews that I hire around here, they always have two attachment points for the tower as they're climbing up. And, you know, that's the only safe way to do it. And it may weigh 30 pounds, but if you can't carry that extra 30 pounds, you probably shouldn't be going up that tower. Is that correct?
That's true. I mean, George, and you know this because you're around it as a professional and you're hiring professional crews. It doesn't matter if you're 10 feet above the ground or 1,000 feet. Everything has to be done in a safe manner. And one thing is, since all the cellular telephone systems were being built here since the early 80s, this tower safety has become a real issue. There are tens of thousands of tower climbers out there now, but climbing on an amateur radio tower is just as problematic, and you have to be just as safe, whether it's Roan 25 or a larger tower. So it's really, really important that you use the right safety gear and that the gear is not out of date and that you're not using one of those old belts like you just described.
Yep. And it only takes one mistake. And, you know, I've known people that have been doing this for years and eventually met their demise in a tower accident. And, you know, they were professionals, but one little mistake and that's the only one you ever get. Well, Tim, thanks for being with us again tonight. We'll look forward to more information on this subject in the future because it's probably one of the most important things that we can talk about here. Everybody wants a nice antenna and a nice tower, but you got to be very careful. It's not some kind of work to be taken lightly. Well, we're going to be back in just a moment because we've got a lot more to go yet, but first, let's get a message from Icom.
Heard it, worked it, logged it. It's time to get the transceiver that's best suited for your lifestyle. Icom offers a variety of high-performance and innovative products. Make the most out of contest season with one of these Icoms today. IC7610, the SDR every ham wants. This high-performance SDR has the ability to pick out the faintest of signals, even in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. The Icom IC7610 is a direct sampling, software-defined radio that will change the world's definition of a SDR transceiver. RF direct sampling, 110 RMDR, independent dual receivers, and dual digicell. Or get the IC7300. Changing the way entry-level HF is designed, this high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design will far exceed your expectations. RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and SD memory card slot. Find out more by visiting icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great Icom radios.
And Icom invites you to enter in the weekly drawings for some great swag prizes like T-shirts and hats by going to icomamerica.com/HamNation and register there. Do it every week after each episode of Ham Nation, and you could win great swag prizes. Plus, you'll be getting another entry in the drawing for the monthly grand prize. And for June, that prize was the IC2730A dual band dual watch mobile Well, we've got a winner. It was Jim, N9CF. Jim went to icomamerica.com/HamNation and registered. And congratulations, Jim. You're going to like that radio. But fear not, we've got another radio for July, and you're just in time to enter. After the show tonight, go to icomamerica.com/HamNation and enter. You might win the swag prize, or you might win the monthly grand prize, which this month will be an ID 4100A entry-level D-Star mobile with big rig features. It's a VHF, UHF dual-band mobile, one band at a time, with built-in GPS, terminal mode, and access point mode available, micro SD card slot for voice and data storage, and there's Android and iOS apps available for download, and an optional Bluetooth board as well. So go to icomamerica.com/HamNation after this and each episode and register to win. And thanks again, Icom, for sponsoring the Ham Nation. And now here's the man with all the news about ham radio. It's Tex Wilbanks.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report, number 2174. These are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2019. The controversy continues as a proposal from France regarding the use of the 2-meter band advances to the agenda of yet another international meeting.
The French proposal that the frequencies 144 to 146 MHz be considered for aeronautical use has advanced to the agenda of a meeting in August, where it will be brought up for final inclusion during the World Radio Communication Conference in 2023. The move was taken during the recent meeting in Prague of the CEPT Project Team A. The IARU, which is against such a change, was present at the Prague meeting, where other administrations were not opposed to putting the new aeronautical frequencies on the agenda. The IARU has been a staunch defender of the 2-meter band, where hams around the world and amateur satellites make use of the frequencies on a primary basis. Meanwhile, the organisation intends to provide member societies and others with a brief encouraging them to review the French proposal before the meeting in August. The Prague meeting, which opened on the 17th of June, concluded on the 21st. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Ed Durant, DD5LP.
In the U.S., the tragic loss of 19 wildfire specialists who perished 6 years ago in Arizona has not been forgotten. Those who died are being remembered once again.
It's been 6 years since the loss of the 19 Granite Mountain Hotshots firefighters in Arizona. And special event station N7GMH will be honoring them on June 30th, the anniversary of the tragedy. Be listening on HF frequencies ending in 19, plus or minus QRM and QRN. Operators from the Granite Mountain Hotshots Memorial Radio Club will be using CW and SSB. There will be a commemorative QSL certificate available for download by hams whose contacts are logged by the club. Despite their expertise and training in handling out-of-control wildfires, the group of 19 lost their lives in the Yarnell Hill fire on June 30th, 2013, and have been honored every year since. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jim Dameron, N8TMW.
As the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 approaches later this month, the ham radio clubs that were part of last year's NASA on the Air event are joining in the lunar landing celebrations.
It seems that everyone is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing by U.S. astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. So the same NASA-sanctioned radio clubs that are fresh from their immensely popular NASA on the Air event in 2018 are ready once again for action. They'll be hosting their own 50th anniversary special event that will operate on the anniversary dates from launch to splashdown, July 16th to July 24th. Kevin, KK4YEL, a trustee of the Kennedy Space Center Club, told Newsline that each club will be bringing their own style to the celebration. The Johnson Space Center Club, W5RRR in Texas, will have the support of one of the engineers or programmers who had worked on the Apollo mission, and the first 10 people to contact with that station will get a handwritten letter of thanks from that team member. All updates will appear on the website nasaontheair.wordpress.com and also Facebook and Twitter with the hashtag NASAOnTheAir. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Christian Kudnick, K0STH.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Ed Durant, DD5LP, Jim Dameron, N8TMW, Christian Kudnick, K0STH, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now here's the solar update with Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6 SWW.
We are hot off the total solar eclipse from July 2nd, and space weather is definitely looking up. As we switch to our front side sun, you can see those bright regions have rotated back into Earth view along with the coronal hole. Now this coronal hole is going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here in the next couple days, so your aurora photographers, especially at high latitudes, you get another chance to catch some aurora shots, although they'll be slightly fleeting. Now these bright regions are boosting the solar flux just a little bit for amateur radio and emergency responders, but we're not quite getting to the marginal range of radio propagation. But at least it's a little bit better than it's been over the past couple weeks. Now, as we switch to our partial backside view with stereo, you can see those bright regions right there. And if you look closely, you can see that they are firing solar storms still. So we do have a chance for some solar storming from these regions if one happens to fire it, if it's Earth directed. But after that, it looks like things are going to be quiet again. Possibly for another couple weeks once these regions rotate off of the sun's west limb. Last week it was news of a meteor crater on the red planet. This week it's a meteor exploding in the atmosphere of our own planet. On June 22nd at 21:25 UTC, a large meteor broke apart and exploded in the skies just 300 kilometers south of Puerto Rico. Captured by the geostationary lightning mapper GLM on the GO-16 satellite, this explosion lit the skies quite vividly. But it was still daylight in Puerto Rico, so there have been no eyewitness accounts. Still, the meteor was observed by several instruments, including the Advanced Baseline Imager, ABI, which caught the meteor track in multiple bandwidths. The split paths of the meteor track you see here verify the meteor broke apart during its descent. Acoustic data from the infrasound array CTB-TO determined that the explosive power of this bolide was equivalent to a 3 to 5 kiloton detonation. That's about a tenth of the size of the bolide that exploded over the skies in Russia back in 2013. Yet the bolide was quite sizable, estimated to be about 3 meters in diameter. Indeed, this meteor was large enough to be observed as an asteroid prior to entering Earth's atmosphere. It was given an official designation, 2019 MO, because it fit the orbit of a near-Earth object identified as A10EO-M1. This kind of early identification of an incoming meteor is revolutionary. It has only happened 4 times in our history, and it demonstrates our improving ability for early detection of these kind of space weather threats. But until we get to a point where we can predict all large meteor impacts, we can be grateful that we have a thicker atmosphere at our planet than at Mars. To put things in perspective, this meteor was nearly the same size as the meteor that caused the new impact crater on Mars. If we didn't have the atmosphere we have at Earth, this bolide would surely have hit the ground. And this fact should give us all something to think about as we become more spacefaring with tangible plans to colonize other worlds. For more details on this week's space weather, including field reports from the total solar eclipse, along with when and where to see aurora, come check out my channel or see me at spaceweatherwoman.com.
Wow, just incredible. This is why I tell you every week you should follow her on Twitter and check her out at spaceweatherwoman.com, at Tamitha Skov on Twitter. Just amazing. We're so thrilled and so lucky to have her as part of our team and as a ham radio operator. So she's one of us. So thank you, Dr. T. I wanted to go back and touch a little bit on the Granite Mountain Hotshot special event. Of course, that special event was over by the time you saw this report, obviously, but I wanted to put it in there just to honor the 19 that died. And I've got an after-action report for you on that. They made 134 contacts. Actually, more than that. They made 134 voice contacts on 20 meters. They made 1 on 18 meters. They made 1 on 2-meter FM, 27 contacts on 40 meters, and 3 CW contacts on 20 meters. So that's 163 altogether. They had 7 on-site operators, 3 off-site, and 3 loggers. So it was a pretty good size operation to honor the Granite Mountain Hotshots. And hopefully you got in their log and something to remember for June 30th of next year. All right, George, what have we got going on with smoke and solder tonight? Should I dampen down my hat?
No, you can keep the hat there, Tex. It's a good look for you. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a couple of things to talk about. Nothing major tonight, but I had some photos here that had collected up. Plus, I had a special announcement here. This is a special event that's going to be going on this weekend. I don't know if Gordo will be participating in this or not, but he could be. I would imagine some folks we know will be in this, although I don't know anybody locally who's doing it. It could happen, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Wimplota. It's WMPLOTA. It's a special event and award scheme for amateur radio satellite operators that encourages the practice of portable operations in a ubiquitous and easily accessible location. And I don't know that you need a chainsaw for this, but it is the Walmart parking lots on the air, a special event that's held the first weekend of each July. And I had not heard about it. This is only the second year they've done it. It's going to be taking place on July the 6th, starting at 0 UTC and ending on July 7th at 23:59 UTC. Be safe and operate in a way that's in no way impactful to the Walmart stores or its customers, but they encourage you to participate in WMPLOTA. Go to WMPLOTA.org to get all the details. Walmart parking lots on the air. If you're a satellite operator, this sounds like a great way to spread the hobby, and you can usually count on those Walmart parking lots being big and open enough that you should get a good sight and shot into the various satellites around. So, great event there. Let me know if one of you does that this coming weekend. Let me know about it, and tell me how it worked out. Well, I've got a couple of just minor things here tonight. Tales from the transmitter site. You know, we do this every now and then, and it's not pre-recorded this time. This is just a couple of snapshots that have been sitting on my desktop, and I couldn't remember if I had shown them before. If I had, then you get to see them again. But the first one here, this is a 50 kilowatt Continental AM transmitter that has been abandoned, and it's in an old building right next to my 50 kilowatt AM site. And you can see there's new residents have taken up in there, and you notice all the straw and twigs and stuff in there. This hasn't been used since 2002, and the building is not maintained. I just happened to go in there a few weeks back to have a little look around. If you look a little closer there's another intruder that you might not see right at first, and that's that cottonmouth moccasin sitting right there inside the transmitter. So I easily closed the door back and got the heck out of there. That's not something you expect to see when you open your transmitter.
And that's why you didn't see any rats. That's why there were no mice in there.
Too.
Yeah, I bet he did.
Now, another tale from the transmitter. This happened, it was the end of last week. I was at one of my transmitter sites, and, the roads are not great into a lot of these, and there's some low-hanging limbs that I have to go under, as well as dodging cow piles and mud holes and anything you could imagine. And so occasionally you'll hit a little limb or something. Well, I got back out on the highway, and I couldn't reach a repeater that was like 40 or 50 miles away that I generally talk to one of my buddies on. Just couldn't bring it up, couldn't make it to it at all. So once I got out on the interstate, I tried again. And I could get in then, but it was kind of weak, a little weaker than I expected. And they said I was a little noisy. Once I got home, I noticed that somebody had slung a piece of coax over the bed of my pickup. And from further investigation, this is actually what I found. I had hit a limb, and the magnetic mount antenna is laying in the back of the pickup, and I was still able to get into a repeater 50 miles away. I can't imagine that I had a lot of power with the foldback circuit in my ID 5100, but hey, it made it. And that's not my preferred operating method. I prefer to run vertical. And I posted this on Facebook, and, some of my friends mentioned, well, he knows better than to use a magnetic mount antenna. You should drill a hole and mount your antenna. But, to me, it's better to have it knocked over and end up in the bed of the pickup than it is to have it ripped out of the roof of your vehicle. So I know it doesn't work as well, but I've been making contacts with magnetic mount mobiles for 50 years on VHF and UHF now, and I know I could do better, but that's just kind of one of the things that I've stuck with. I would like to drill a hole in there, but after this event, I'm thinking, maybe it's a good thing I didn't. Well,
hey, at least it's better than a through the glass. It's better than a through the glass antenna, right?
Well, especially if that one had come through the glass, that would not have been good at all. But yeah, my buddy Tommy here, N5Z&O, ran through the glass antennas for years, and I always ragged him about it, and he finally changed, got something else. But yeah, those, I don't like those at all. But no. Anyway, and that was a half-wave dual band antenna there, half-wave on 2 meters. I can tell you for sure that a 5/8 wave 2-meter antenna works noticeably better than that half-wave does. Found that out years ago, but I wanted a dual band antenna, so I've just kind of stuck with those. I couldn't put something on there real tall. That was a Comet, and that was a Comet magnetic mount there as well. But that's all I've got from the transmitter site this week. I've been out there. I've actually installed a Viasat internet out at one site and plugged a magic jack into it that I'm trying to use to replace a telephone line that the phone company really just won't maintain at all anymore. And I'll let you know how that works out. So far, it worked for about a day and it went down, and I had to go back out and reboot. But I've got an idea, something I'm working on for that to maybe help in that situation. We'll talk about it here in the future. But right now, Amanda had fun this year at Field Day. And, well, just tell us what's going on, Amanda.
Well, it's hot, but so yeah, I wanted to show our Field Day video. This was taken. Blue KA4 EPS did an amazing job on editing this. Unfortunately, there's a long bit about the QRV, which everybody here just saw on Ham Nation maybe less than a month ago. So apologize for the 3 minutes of that, but really enjoyable and a beautiful sight. So I hope you guys all enjoy it. Then we'll get to the questions afterwards.
Okay, folks. Well, I warmed up from 39 degrees to 42 degrees, and I got my bibs on, my heated gear on, and bike's ready to go. So I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. I'm going to go to a couple of Field Day sites today, and I'll roll some video along the way, see how it goes.
Hi, I'm Joey, NB0N. Welcome to Rocky Mountain Ham's Field Day. We have a con trailer set up with satellite internet.
Oh, really?
We have 2 quick response vehicles, these television news stands.
So that's how Jeff was talking to me, is through that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, look at that.
And then the one behind you has got the rise phone.
What a setup.
We have a satellite station right here to your left, along with another antenna there. And then behind the QRV, we have a large antenna that you can see as you walk around.
thanks. Very nice. Big generator and all. Oh, yes.
We have a Gordo station next to our campfire.
Very nice.
Now if you wander down there to the blue chairs and kind of go to the right there, there's a deck.
Okay.
I'm going to drop my stuff off at the deck.
Thanks. This is what you call a real field day. My goodness. How y'all doing? I'm Luke, KA4 EPS.
I'm Schroeder, AC0KQ.
Nice to meet you.
Matthew, KD0DPX.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Scott Taylor, W0KVA.
Nice to meet you, KA4 EPS from Florida.
Hey, welcome.
Took the motorcycle up here.
All right.
It's a little bit of a trip, but
Yeah.
nice.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Very nice setup. This is by far the best field day I've ever seen yet. This is great.
Nice.
Yeah, we're down in Florida. They're at 105 degree feel like temperature. So.
We had snow here last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So how's that for a differential?
It's huge. It's huge.
That's all ready to go now.
Very nice.
No. I'll give it a few words.
What's the flight on?
I think it's an 8. It's an 8.
Stacy had to get the food out. And we didn't have another.
If you don't do it that record, you can get on there and play too.
How many kW is the generator?
Or gin.
25.
Okay.
20? 25? I don't know.
I'll take a look.
It's like 20. It's either 20 or 25.
I'll take a look at it.
USL 1 Delta Whiskey India. Good luck. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day. November 0, Sierra Zulu. November 0, Sierra Zulu Field Day.
Guess I'll figure that out later.
QSL, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, what's going on here? Awesome. Perfect. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day, November 0, Sierra Zulu. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day, November 0, Sierra Zulu. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day, November 0, Sierra Zulu.
And what's a field day without a porta potty? Oh, we got little chicks in there. Wow. hi to everybody on Facebook.
Hi, Facebook. Hi, Friends of Lou. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day, November 0, Sierra Zulu Field Day. We're on 40 meters. It's not very open yet. CQ Field Day, November 0, Sierra Zulu. This is for our 10 gig station.
I was going to say, I have some of those. If you need any. That's amazing.
We have repeaters down here.
Oh, there's a Kenwood. Look at that. That's what I use.
We have for an S-TAC repeater.
Okay.
And some UPSs down here. And of course our 8300 DMR, or analog. It's analog right now.
Yeah. But that repeater works really well. I guess it's in here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is our big old patch panel. I'll turn the noise down for your viewers.
Oh, I'm sure they want to hear that. The die-hard hams are like,
oh,
yeah, let's listen in.
And we have tons of UHF and VHF here. We monitor everything in this. We monitor VLA, fire. We can monitor BLM channels, air to ground, air to air, and we monitor that for certain agencies. So that's why we have so many of these. And we also have our 800 megahertz radio, so we can talk to our law enforcement and others.
Excellent.
APRS and packet in here as well. Connectivity, we have a micro tick. We also have a cradle point. And when needed, we can hook up an Exceed satellite and get internet for whatever our needs are.
And how many contacts have you made today yet?
It looks like we're about 2468, and we had some networking issues, and we lost connectivity to the server, so we couldn't log anything, so it was a slow start.
Gotcha.
But the band's got to open too, so.
Yeah, I'll have to get to some of the Florida stations to see if they can get you 40. I guess 40 to get.
Well, we need 3 parts of, because there's North Florida, Southern Florida, and Central or something like that. I don't remember the 3 sections.
I'll text them that you're on 7.208 right now.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Good seeing you, Amanda. Okay. I'm KA4 EPS. What's your call?
KT0F, Kermit the Zero Frog.
All right, how many megapixels? What frequency are you on?
Yeah.
You guys can possibly get up there.
Her truck struggled to get up. A little disorganized right now.
Oh, this is nice. Cozy.
We were looking for a small one, or I was looking for a small one that we could pull. And she really wanted the space.
Oh, this is perfect. I mean, you got a stove, a full kitchen.
Stove, refrigerator, sink that we can take a shower, which is something we've never been able to do before. And that was
yeah, I don't hear anyone.
Find a good one. We're in the band, I think.
So I know it was a little long. Sorry about that. Hope I didn't lose anyone's interest there. So I do have one question, and that's for Gordo tonight. What kind of antenna was on that comm van that you showed? It looked like some sort of loop, but was open on one end with a small element outside the loop.
That is a dual band horizontal loop for 2 meters and 440. If someone will email me that's asking that question to my call sign WB6NO8ARRL.net, I'll go out there and I'll look. It's a home brew, but this fellow, his group produces these in quantity. So I'll get that individual, the name and info for that dual band horizontal loop.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And by the way, so I have to ask everyone this question. It's Independence Day tomorrow. Who's working the 13 colonies? George, you making some contacts?
Probably not, because I've only got an 80-meter antenna right now. The dog took care of the multiband antenna for me a little earlier with the coax. I'll be operating barbecue grill, though.
All right. Don, what about you?
Well, I'm going to be on the riding mower for a couple of hours in the morning before it gets too hot. And then once I come in and cool off from that, I'm going to try to do a little bit of that between that and hanging out over at the in-laws and doing the grilling thing. So, that's part of my plan.
All right. Gordo, what about you?
Absolutely. I'll try and get on 20 as well as 40, probably 40 at night, 20 during the day. And tomorrow, as I'm sure you're on with your team, we're working with our local fire watch to ensure that we've got hams positioned. These are trained fire watch hams, trained in position to look for smoke or any hazardous occurrences that could lead to a wildfire. Amanda?
Yeah, normally we do, but this weekend we're unplugging and, we're not completely unplugging. We're leaving the grid and going camping, and we're going to work some portable colony. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time in the camper and just enjoying wildlife and peace and quiet. But we've got the team ready in case there is any fires. You guys be safe. It's Independence Day and we know what we're celebrating, but do it safely and enjoy your day or your whole weekend. With that, that's all I have. So George, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, Amanda. Well, I just wanted to comment on the video there. He did a great job. Looks like you guys had a lot of fun at field day. And no, the video was just the right length. It was not too long. Very interesting. As hams, we just like to look at stuff sometimes and just see what other people are doing. And that gave us a good idea of how much fun y'all were having. Well, thanks for being with us tonight, everyone. I believe Bob will be back with us next week, but I hope everyone up in Canada had a great Canada Day earlier this week. And I hope everyone has a great July 4th here tomorrow in the U.S. Before we go, though, let me just go quick around the horn and see if anyone's got any final comments. We'll start with you, Gordo.
Happy 4th of July, and we sure hope to hear you on the air this weekend with the 13 Colonies event, or if you're watching or listening to this podcast later on through the Twit Network, let's work you, hopefully, on Ham Radio. Happy 4th of July.
Okay, Gordo. Yeah, and don't forget about the Walmart's On the Air event for amateur satellite operators. Go check that out. If you're into amateur satellite this weekend, go set up in a parking lot, and I hope you do not get any suspicious looks from the security guards there or anything like that. Don, what about you?
Well, I just want to tell you that for those of you who are planning on doing the Walmart parking lot on the air thing, chances are you won't be the most conspicuous person there at Walmart. No. However, you may accidentally show up on that website, People of Walmart. But you never know. But either way, go out and have fun with that. That's a great operating event, and it's a great way to bring ham radio to the masses. Because invariably somebody's going to get curious and come say, what's that? And so that gives you a great time and opportunity to tell them. And also, America. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Be safe.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And yeah, somebody could come up and want to know, I couldn't find it in the store. Where did you find that clothesline?
That's right.
Yeah. Amanda?
So Walmart is seriously about 250 feet away from us, maybe 350. And unfortunately, I'm going to miss out because I'm going to be out of town. But maybe I'll find out that somebody else was operating from there. Good luck, you WM OTA people. I hope you have fun.
That's close. You probably show up on that website all the time, don't you, Amanda?
Yes, I do, because I wear pajamas obviously all the time. And Jeff wears like my flip-flops to go to Walmart at least twice a week. So, we're regulars on that website. Just look for me. I'm known.
That's hot.
Oh, happy 4th of July, everybody.
Have a great 4th. We'll look for you again next week right here at Ham Nation. And like I said, hopefully Bob will be back with us and we'll find out what he did. 7-3.